Hey guys, it's Jen, and to be honest, it's taken me a lot to get to the point where I felt like I could film this video. I've tried talking about it so many times, but truthfully, the recovery from having a baby was traumatizing for me. It was just really hard for me to even open that back up and feel those emotions again. If childbirth, labor, any of that is something that you are completely frightened by, I'm gonna get into some details that might make you a little bit uncomfortable. So that's just my fair warning. My personal belief is that honesty is always going to be the most important thing to convey. If any of you guys are interested in having a child at some point, or having a friend or supporting somebody who goes through the process of having a baby, it can be helpful to know some more details so that you can better support that person or better understand what you're going through. In case you have not seen my video I did talking about my actual labor experience, that actually went pretty smoothly for the most part, and I will leave a link to that up here and also in the description box down below. I do highly recommend you watching that before watching this video. Aria, my daughter, is a very healthy, happy baby. She is definitely on the bigger end in terms of length, whereas I'm a very small person, so just in terms of how anatomically we are proportioned to each other, she was quite a big baby for my body size. Now I will say, my story isn't the absolute most painful, horrible, traumatizing story that I've ever heard anybody on the internet ever say, but it's also not the best. I would say out of my group of friends and people I've talked to in real life, everybody's had an easier labor and recovery than I have. So just because this is my story certainly doesn't mean that that's something that would happen to you. I'm still here and I still want more children in the future, so let's just start off that way. No matter how bad things could possibly be, I still want another kid. I guess I'll start with the actual story. I had my baby, I had some tearing, I needed to have some stitches. I had a little tear in the perineum area, which is the space between your vagina and your anus. There's like a little bit of skin there, so it tore a little bit that way, and it also tore a little bit through the side of my labia, so I had tearing in two directions. Honestly, that first day, I didn't really think of it. I was on a lot of drugs at the hospital, but the difficult thing is after 24 hours, the hospital that I went through, if you have a vaginal delivery, they say, okay, you've been at the hospital for 24 hours after you had this baby, time for you to go home. They sent me home, and I feel like, honestly, I wasn't ready to go home. I literally couldn't really walk by myself. I had a lot of pain medications when I was in the hospital, but when they discharged me, the medications that were actually prescribed to me were a lot less. What I found is in those first couple of days, when it got to be the last hour or two that my medicines were starting to wear off, I was in incredible amounts of pain. In the very beginning, you're getting basically almost no sleep, maybe an hour here and there. So I also wasn't giving my body a chance to recover. By the time we went in 3 days later for Aria's doctor's visit, she had a pediatrician visit, I said to the pediatrician, look, I know I'm here for Aria's visit and you're a pediatrician and you're just here to check out her, but I have to tell you, I'm in so much pain. She said, well, I mean, if it's really serious, you could go to urgent care. It was a little bit upsetting to know that, like, as a human being, I mustered up enough, even though it's not my appointment, to say, hey, look, like, I need some help. And I felt very brushed off by her. I'm having a hard time sitting down. I'm having a hard time walking. I'm having a hard time going to the bathroom. So I said to myself, like, I think I just need to advocate for myself and go into urgent care. I got to urgent care. They checked me in. I was probably there for like at least 2 or 3 hours, just waiting for a doctor to come down. The regular doctor there, they're like, we probably need to call somebody down from the OB-GYN department. The doctor comes and checks me out, and she looks, I'm like splay-legged, like such in a vulnerable, painful position. She checks me out and she says, "Oh God." And I'm like thinking to myself, when I am in this very, very compromised, lonely, painful position, and it's freezing down here, and you're looking at my privates and saying, "Oh God," it just made my heart break. I felt like my stomach was in my throat, and I just thought, this is the last thing on earth I want to hear 3 days after giving birth. But that doctor was also really sweet, and she didn't blow me off. She prescribed me some antibiotics. And thinking back on that now, going in, I think, saved me. Who knows what could have happened? She said, "I think you have an infection. So even if it's not, it's better for you to take these to make sure you heal properly." I started feeling a lot better when I did get the stronger pain medicines and started taking the antibiotics. The heavy pain medicines actually cause a lot of other side effect issues, such as you can't go number 2, so you kind of have to go on a stool softener at the same time. When your body wants to have a baby, it's like it just holds everything back. It was a scary experience going number 2 for the first time after having a baby. I don't think I ever really understood what constipation was in my life until that section of my life. And yes, very painful, very scary, because you don't want to push. And I had this fear that there would be an issue with the stitches. Everything was okay. I made it through, but definitely if the doctors tell you to take those stool softeners, make sure you take them, because I swear having things come out too easily is a lot better than having things not come out for hours or days. When it came to number 1, that was actually another issue for me. I had quite a lot of urinary incontinence. My other friends I've talked to didn't really deal with this basically almost at all. For about the first month, I had to wear diapers. I would just be laying down, and when I would get up, it would just come out. And that is my complete honest truth. And I also think, again, I will repeat, like, I don't know how typical that is. I felt very alone and very ashamed and very vulnerable. I felt like I couldn't leave the house because what if I had an accident while I was out? I'm not somebody where I consider myself to like look or feel very old. For the first time in my life, I really felt the kind of deep empathy for elders who do have those kinds of problems. It's something that's so natural to be able to control your urine that completely went out the window for me for a time. When it started to get better, I was wearing pads, which honestly, a lot of people do that out of ease anyway, because the first couple of months after you have a baby, you basically have the craziest period of your life, because all of the lining that was in there protecting the baby finally gets a chance to shed, and you're not supposed to use tampons or anything like that, so it just comes out, a lot of it, until you're basically cleaned out and starting back at ground zero. On top of the actual physical changes, because when the baby comes out, your body is just, I looked like I was 7 months pregnant, plus deflated at the same time. Basically, for the first several months, I would just wear these compression leggings from Belly Bandit. They helped me to feel like I had support around my midsection, because otherwise I felt so weak, and I felt like I needed something holding myself together. I tried to do those corset type of things, but it would cause so much pain to my down there area, which was already in so much pain. I knew I couldn't do that. And I was like, you know what? If my body is just going to be schlumpy and floppy and ripply forever, then I guess this is just gonna be what my body's gonna be like forever. I think the 2 months out point was a really big breaking point for me. That's the first time where I felt like I had a little bit more control. When it all started coming back, that's when I was like, oh my gosh, this is a miracle. You know, instead of looking at my stomach, which before looked almost like a cottage cheese texture, and I just felt like there were stretch marks all over, and I was like, how can my skin possibly go back to a normal texture? 2 months later, I could start seeing the beginnings. Things were still a little floppy, but I could see an outline of shape of my stomach. And my waist started going in, my hips were still big, my boobs are still big, which made the whole fashion game very frustrating and difficult because I didn't identify with my new body. As a side note, my poor husband, because he was like, just thought I looked so beautiful, and I wanted nothing to do with any kind of physical contact. I didn't want to be hugged. I didn't want to be cuddled. I didn't want anybody holding my hand. I was just like, no. But he was like, but you're so beautiful and I love you. It was really frustrating though, being stuck inside my body, because I didn't relate to my body. I didn't relate to my body shape. I felt very detached from myself. I felt very much like I was just being used up for a purpose. I just felt like my body wasn't mine. You know, I was like, okay, I'm gonna buy a new pair of jeans and just accept this new body and be like, okay, I guess I'm just gonna be curvier Jen, and that's the story. As soon as I bought a pair of new jeans, 1 week later, they didn't fit anymore. They literally slid all the way down. So I think that was a little bit of the beginning of realizing that this next whole year was going to be constantly changing. Not just seeing my baby growing and changing every week, day to day, month to month. It's astronomical how much they change, but literally myself. I had to reassess how I felt about myself like every week. But you know, as the months went on, I could start seeing my body shrink a little bit more and more and more. Also, you just sort of get into more of a routine and feel like you get the hang of mothering by the time you're at about 3 months. Koreans, they always say, by the 100 days, it's such a huge turning point because being a parent actually starts to become really fun. The baby's personality comes out. Well, it's not just the baby. I feel like the mother's personality finally gets to come out again, because for all of this time, you were not able to know who you were. You're just a function. It's not that you forget who you are, but who you have become is so far from any semblance of what makes you a separate person from your baby. And maybe it's the hormones, and maybe it's the body changes. Maybe it's just that, you know, biologically you're supposed to put all your focus on your baby. But it is really hard. It is really, really, really hard losing yourself in that way. Mentally, a big turning point does come, for me at least, around 6 months. By the time I was 6 months postpartum, I was able to fit in all of my old clothes, and a lot of them started to look a lot like they did. Now, I won't say I wanted to wear all of the same clothes that I wore before I had a baby. I definitely wasn't comfortable wearing like crop tops or some things that looked sort of sexy in any way. Like I didn't want that at all. I wanted baggy things and to kind of feel covered up. But at least at that point, when sort of my boobs and my shoulders and hips sort of went back down, I could wear baggy things and not feel like I was just a circus tent of milk and belly and hips. Right before Aria started actually going on solids, she was taking in so much from me, from my physical body, breastfeeding like crazy, just breastfeeding a lot. It drained me physically. I was super dehydrated all the time. My skin got super dry. My whole body, I don't think I've ever been that skinny in my life. I'm not saying this to brag. I swear to you, it was at almost a disgusting point. You know those cyclists that have like zero body fat and they're all cheekbones and their stomachs are like, you can see all the little tendons in their abs? That's what I looked like, except I had giant boobs at the same time and zero butt. I was like, you know, if I walked too far, I'd probably just fall over forward. Once she started taking on more of her nutrients outside of just me and my personal bodily sacrifice, that's when things got a million times easier. She slept better. I started sleeping better. I started gaining a little bit of that body fat back on my body. And just mentally, I started feeling a lot more like myself. Everybody always says it took 10 months to make a baby, so you should give yourself 10 months to recover before you can expect to look or feel like how you did beforehand. And I'm here to say, I don't know that you can really expect to look and feel exactly like you did beforehand. Obviously, having a baby is a huge sacrifice that your body makes and that you make as a human being. And maybe my stomach isn't exactly like how it was before, but when I see where I came from and how it is now, I'm like, oh my gosh, every part of my body is a miracle. At the end of the day, I feel like all of these things I used to be so freaking self-conscious about, I look back and I think, why? Why did you worry so much about stuff that doesn't matter? That's maybe my takeaway. Don't get so caught up in all of these little things that we think are so important. Oh, every time I'm wearing a tight dress, I have to suck my stomach in and make everybody believe I have a perfect ballerina's body. You know what? I'm just glad to not feel like a cow. I'm just glad to not feel like my guts aren't going to spill out. Things that I kind of hated before, I kind of just celebrate them now. In the end, I'll say the thing that I hate hearing. It's all worth it. Even just human experiences, I can't imagine being at this point and not feeling like everything I've been through was a revelation. Even outside of the miracle of having a baby and seeing how incredible that is and seeing how much joy and fullness that brings my heart. It was hard and it was painful and it was gross, but at the same time, it was beautiful and it was amazing and incredible. And makes me feel so grateful and blessed and humble, and it just makes me think about my body in a way that I never did before. Sometimes there are things that happen in your life where as you go through them, as much as you try not to say it, you wonder to yourself, why is this happening to me? But those same things are often the ones where you think back on it, and they're the things that give you evidence that you're so much stronger than you ever thought was possible. And that's how I feel about my recovery. And you know, I do want more kids in the future, so maybe I'm the crazy one. I don't think I would be the same person if I had experienced it any other way. So I hope this gives strength to all you mamas out there and mamas to be and mamas someday. And even if you're never going to be a mama, that it just helps you appreciate your moms and some of the crazy aspects that make up life and bringing life into the world. If you found this video to be interesting or heard things you've never heard before, or if you just enjoyed it, I would love it if you would give the video a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe to see more of my videos. I'll be doing a lot of more MOMTEMBER videos, so make sure you keep checking back into my channel. I love you guys so much, and thank you ultimately for being here with me as my extended family and listening to my stories, which are hard to say, but are also really important. Thank you for just being here and listening. I love you guys, and I'll see you in my next video.